Hey, this is Mike with the Quality Sportsman. I just got back from shooting the IWI World Carbine Shootout down in Clinton House, South Carolina. I was in way over my head, and I'm excited to tell you everything I learned. Let's take a look. Hey folks, before we get into it, I'd ask that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That will help me grow the channel and bring you better content each week. Thanks. All right, so when I say I was in way over my head, I don't normally shoot three-gun style carbine matches that are really, in your face, really fast, quick shooting. It was my first hit factor match, which means it's a combination of how quickly you shoot the stage and how many hits you get in the A versus the C, D zone, things like that. If you're familiar with three-gun USPSA rules, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that was a steep learning curve. Little did I know I was signing up for one of the biggest matches of the year, carbine only, and there were about 200 shooters, and it was my first USPSA style carbine match. So I love throwing myself into these types of situations because for me, it gives me a little bit of excitement, of the unknown and going into something new. And I always learn a ton. I think it's the best way to learn is just go shoot match and ask people 1,000 questions. It will really shorten your time to learn and time to grow in that sport. I'm really proud of myself as far as how much I progressed over the 2-day course of shooting. The first day was really sloppy, rainy, which was kind of a bummer. I was not looking for extra challenges, but we persevered. Everybody was in the same conditions. We all got muddy. We all got wet. It was fine. Of course, I felt like we started out on the hardest stages, and I was just telling myself, don't get DQ'd, don't flag anybody, don't break the 180, which is the safety zone for where you're allowed to point your barrel. If you break it, I think you're out. So I was just telling myself, don't break any of these rules, don't get DQ'd. But then by the end of day 2, I was really trying to push the speed. I was really getting a lot more comfortable. And I think that's a testament to how far I had grown just over the course of 2 days and 12 stages. Being more of a long-range shooter myself, I did really well when we were pushed out to, I think 560 yards was the furthest target. I hit all of my steel except for one that I missed. Not really missed, I just didn't shoot it. I totally forgot there were 5 steels on one stage instead of 4, which is kind of a bummer. But those mental errors were part of the things that I was having to work out on day 1. So I hit all my long range steel, which was really great. I finished those stages, faster than probably half my squad, which was a big win for me. And I met some really cool people and learned a ton. So let's go take a look. I'm not going to show you the whole match. I'm just going to show pieces of the match. When I go to these things, I really am not trying to prioritize getting that action footage. For me, it's costly money-wise and time-wise to go down, and I really want to do my best to soak up as much as I can at the event so that I can come back and share it with you guys instead of just stressing so much about getting that action footage, which, watching other people shoot on video is not really that fun anyway. So I have a little bit of match footage for you, and then we'll come back here and talk about lessons learned. Hey folks, just pulled in here at the range and it is pouring. It was a early wake up, 4:45, 2-hour pouring rain drive. I think it's gonna be tough today. I see a lot of the ROs out there switching targets, trying to figure out how to keep them dry. So a little extra challenge there, but at least everybody's going through it together. So today's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how far my general marksmanship training is going to get me. Favor point. I don't know what's going to matter in here.
But the only difference is you're holding
right, y'all. Well, first stage was fun. Finishing like 80 something seconds, which was, you know, slower than the pros out here, of course. It was a challenge. I totally forgot height over bore the whole time, so a lot of my hits were below the A zone. So that's going to be what I'm trying to remember on this next one. So let's see how it goes. Yes.
Stand by.
All right, stage 2 is a little wild. It's got some GoPro footage, so hopefully you can see that. And missed a couple targets, got a couple extra, missed with the steel, which is really annoying. There were 5 steel and I only shot for 4, and that's kind of my game, is that longer range steel. So I gave up quite a bit of points on that steel, which is annoying. But you know, just focus on the positives, keep on moving. Stage 3, let's go.
Stand by.
All right, day 1 complete. Got a little faster and faster as the day went. I'm still learning a ton. Honestly, the hardest thing for me is instead of keeping the gun at the low ready, which personally I feel is safer, if you're running around the pistol bay in the stage, you got to keep your gun pointed back down range. So it can be a little awkward at sometimes, but other than that, doing well, getting faster. Learning the game. It's awesome. So it didn't let up raining the whole time, which was kind of a pain in the butt, but you know, it is what it is. And gonna come back tomorrow and see if I can apply those lessons learned.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Stand by.
All right, so for lessons learned, I want to share some lessons learned specific to gear, and then I want to share some lessons learned specific to, training procedural things. So first of all, let's go to gear. So this was a USPSA governed event, and I was shooting in the open class, which there are still some limitations, but basically anything goes as far as, size of magazines, any gear you want to hang off your rifle. Like, you can have a main optic and a red dot sight. You can have, bipods, whatever. I was unaware how much of a handicap it would be, not like only coming in with 30 round magazines. There were a lot of stages where there were 16 targets that required 2 hits each, which going into it, I already knew I had to do a mag change. I was shooting a brand new rifle, brand new AR-15, and doing an empty mag change. I couldn't just drop it out. I had to pull it out because everything was a little bit tight, and it slowed me down. So I don't really know, maybe 4 or 5 seconds per mag change. So those stages where there were 16 targets and I knew I had to do a mag change because I only had 30 round mags, that I was way slower than everybody else that had 40 round plus mags. So that was my first lesson learned. If I ever do an open event again, not limited on mag capacity, I'm going to show up with at least one 40 round mag, maybe with an aftermarket base plate to get an extra, 3 or 4 rounds, however many you can get from those, and at least one 60 round drum. Another benefit of the 60 round drum that I noticed that I didn't really pick up on before was when we were shooting from rooftops, that 60 round drum is actually a little shorter than a full 30 round magazine. And when you're shooting from the rooftop with only a 16-inch barrel, you have to kind of be up there tight. We were allowed to use bags, so I was able to kind of squish the bag up to get a little more clearance, but that magazine clearance is actually a challenge on the rooftop. So that was another lesson learned as far as, having that 60 round drum. If you're going to shoot the open division, you may not always want to do that because it's a little bit heavier, a little bit slower, but a lot of folks had that and I didn't, and I felt, fairly limited. So that was my first big lesson learned. My second was have the 45-degree mounted red dot. I thought I was so cool, and the first day I went in with the top mounted red dot on top of my Arkin LPVO. And that was untenable. I could not really shoot that. To get up on the top mounted red dot, I had to kind of pull my chin up to the stock like this, and it was really hard to find the dot. With the side mounted on the second day, all you have to do is obviously turn your rifle just a little bit. That dot is right there, and I was shooting a lot better. Those targets that are really close, although, for my Army training, just getting hits, obviously you can just hit it without even looking through the scope. But to get that A-zone hits when they have, half the target blocked out with a no-shoot or a hard cover, you really need a dot or something to make sure you're gonna put the rounds where it counts. Okay, and the last gear tip lesson learned I had is actually not related to any of my equipment, but I forgot sunscreen, and on the second day when the sun came out and it was nice, I got scorched. So bring sunscreen with you, or, what I think would be great is like those light silk weight fishing shirts that are long sleeve that cover you up, because I don't really want to get all greased up with sunscreen and then, sweat and have to deal with that. I don't like using it. So, but don't forget it as we get closer, to the summer. I'm coming to you in March right now. As we get closer to the summer, obviously that's going to be a critical piece of gear. All right, so those are my top 3 gear lessons learned. Let's talk about top 3 training lesson learned. I was nowhere near as fast on effective double taps as a lot of these pro shooters were. When they had a close target, they pow were just right on it. So I had a muzzle brake, on my rifle. The stock trigger on that FN15 TAC-3 is really nice. So I didn't feel like it was a gear limitation. I actually felt like it was a training limitation. So as I practice for these type of events, I am going to do a lot more practice understanding my height over bore as I turn the rifle and use that red dot, and practice getting comfortable with that double tap, knowing that both rounds are going to be in the center in that A zone of the target. You know, kind of the same, along the same lines, height over bore was really an issue for me. As soon as I, you know, since I'm used to shooting long range steel, as soon as I see that dot on the target, my brain says to go. And I was often forgetting up close to aim at the neck so that it would be in the A zone of the target, you know, inside of 25 yards. So I constantly had to override that instinct all day, and it bit me. A lot of my, you know, hits that should have been close gimmies, I took a couple of misses, and I took a lot of Charlies and Deltas instead of Alphas. So that was a big bummer, but you know, it was hard to just try to move really fast and then override that instinct. So you know, that's one consideration as I train for this. I'm gonna work on that height over bore, you know, getting used to aiming in different aim points as I get in closer, and I know that I have about a 2-inch gap between point of aim and point of impact. The next thing is really learning how to plan out a stage. If you go into it and just say, I'll shoot them as I see them, you know, we had one course that was moving through the woods, and it was too much for me. It was my second course of this entire match, and only my second course in USPSA, you know, history for myself. I totally blanked out on, did I already shoot this target? And I slowed down a lot. You know, I'm sure you saw that in the video, where I, you know, had to kind of, when I went back to a target that you clearly see I already shot, that was me asking myself if I had shot it or not, and I had no memory. So the ROs told me I missed a couple targets there. Looking back at the footage, I honestly can't see which ones I missed, but it was just mayhem. There was a lot of engagements through the woods, and I didn't plan it out. So learning how to plan a stage and think, okay, you know, going through in zones of like, okay, here, I'm standing in this one spot, I can engage all these targets. I move over here, all these targets, and kind of planning it out instead of just going into, you know, I'll shoot them as I see them. That's when I got a lot better in day 2. So I'm excited to set up some scenarios where I practice that, you know, to kind of stretch that mental muscle of learning how to be as efficient as possible, not just, you know, trying to move to 10 different spots, but saying, okay, I think I can shoot all these targets from 3 spots. In my first position, I got these ones. In my second position, these. Third position, these, and then I'm done. And that way, running, you know, getting used to running that through mentally, so that when you go up, you already know what you're going to do. You've rehearsed it in your head multiple times. I did that the second day, and although I, you know, had some concerns like, oh shoot, did I miss a target? Because I rehearsed it, I was able to kind of autonomously go through the stage and not miss anything. So I did a lot better the second day once I was running that kind of mental rehearsal and planning out the, you know, zones or whatever you want to call it in your head. So third, in addition to the height over bore, you know, which was really just a practice issue, and that's my fault. I built the gun like the day before the event, zeroed it and went. That's kind of how I live my life. But it was really windy the second day for our long range targets. And I had just planned on shooting the 55 grain, you know, cheap Winchester ammo. That was hitting steel fine on non-windy days, but now all of a sudden we had like a 13 to 18 mile an hour wind on this range. And I thought, oh shoot, I better shoot these 77 grainers that I brought. That's gonna give me a lot more forgiveness in this wind. But I didn't know exactly, since I had an Arkin LPVO, I didn't have, you know, mill markings in my reticle. It's a bullet drop compensator, and it worked well for the 55 grain at 3,000 feet per second. Now I'm shooting 77 grains at about 2,700 feet per second, and I didn't know where those were going to hit. So luckily I did some, you know, I just kind of eyeballed it. I just thought, okay, I'll aim a little higher. I'll send a couple extra rounds per target. And I did fine, miraculously, out to 560 on that windy day, aiming probably 1 to 1.5 IPSC target widths to the right. And I was finally able to get that long range impact. So, but, you know, I was kind of disappointed in myself, and I was kind of annoyed in the moment that I didn't really take the time to practice with that ammo, know exactly how much lower that impact was going to be at each yardage. Unfortunately, I did download an app, I think it's called like Chair Gun or something, which is supposed to be kind of a Strelok Pro replica, RIP to Strelok for us here in the US. But I downloaded that the morning of because I knew this was going to be an issue. And unfortunately, that did not have the reticle for the Arc and Optics. So while I'm sure they're going to add it later, that did not help me yesterday. All I had to do was know how much lower those drops were going to be for those heavier bullets out to 500 and 600 yards. And I would have been a lot more confident going into that stage. So that was my third tip is, if you're shooting 5.56 and you're doing these competitions where you're going to be engaging, maybe 5 long-range targets and 200 close-range targets, there's a lot of points in those long-range targets, and you're probably going to want to shoot something heavier. Everybody does it, right? And there's a good reason for it. All the good shooters shoot those heavier bullets for those long-range ones, so it's not getting pushed around as much. So you got to know where that's going to hit. And if you're not just going purely off of like a mil-dot reticle and you have a BDC type reticle in your LPVO, which a lot of them do, you're going to want to know how that translates. So overall, it was a phenomenal event. I feel like I'm such a better shooter and I know exactly what I need to work on if I'm ever going to do an event that has close range targets. I got a few more matches coming up this year that I know are going to have those close range targets, and now I know how to practice and I know how to set up my gear for it. Special thanks to my buddy David, who was on my squad. He was really great and took the time to walk me through everything. And after every stage, we would look at it and I would say, David, what's the plan? And he would share what he was going to do. And I would kind of figure out if I wanted to do the same thing or not. Anyways, David, you're great. I really appreciate your partnership on this event, and I can't wait to shoot together again soon. Congrats on your upcoming Army retirement, and thank you for your service. Big thanks to all of the ROs that put this on. There were so many ROs, and I was just blown away by their selflessness and how hard they were working to reset the stages, to score, to be fair, to be nice to us. They were out there in the rain too, and they had to take 2 days off before the weekend to do their staff shoot and learn all the stages. So a lot of work went into it for not that much, monetary benefit for them. So thank you so much, guys. Thanks to the crew that ran the match. Donnie, the match director, phenomenal job from a new guy's perspective. This was an amazing first experience. I feel like I didn't belong there, but everybody was so welcoming and it was such an eye-opening experience for me, and I couldn't be more grateful. So thanks for that. Guys, I hope that you learned something from this experience for me. I really recommend you get out there, just even if you're afraid, even if you're scared, just sign up for it and use it as a forcing function to get your gear sorted out, to do some training. I practice so much better at the range when I know I have a match coming up versus if I'm just going to practice. And show up there and just be humble and just tell everybody, hey, I'm new, I shoot guns, I'm safe, but can I get a little help? And be respectful that they're there competing as well, but find the right time to ask them questions. And everybody will help you. I've never had a single person turn me down and not ask questions. They're all more than happy to help because I think they all know what it felt like to be the new guy on the range and not know how the operations of that type of match goes. So get out there and do it. I think it's super rewarding, and I can guarantee that you won't regret it. So hopefully some of these lessons learned from me will save you some money and get your rounds on target next time. I hope you enjoyed the match footage, and we'll see you next time on The Quality Sportsman. Take care.